Hello, and welcome everyone to my 2020 YouTube season finale. First up on the docket, the Chris Jericho's Rock and Wrestling Rager at Sea Part Duh, back in January. On your screen is the setup for AEW Dynamite that took place on the Jericho Cruise. And the opening contest was SCU versus Kenny Omega and Hangman Page for the AEW Tag Titles. Here is the final sequence of the match.
Taking on both men here. Oh, impact. Inside out. Upside down. Tag titles on the line. On TNT. Boom. Could that do it? Something up. Yeah. Our new AEW Tag Team Champions.
So what a way to kick off the night at the Jericho Cruise. So here's more of what happened that night. Before this match began, something really cool happened that I was proud to be a part of. Here it is.
And here comes their boss, the champion. Champion has reinvented himself again. He's the reverend of reinvention. Yes, singing along to Judas.
So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That is where the Judas sing-along began. And it became a weekly tradition every single week on AEW television that fans are in attendance. I was proud to be a part of it and awesome to start it. Oh, and how could I forget to mention that I had a brief run as the Chris Jericho Cruise 24/7 champion. I was the third champion, and I took it from the guy I went on the cruise with, Muhammad, and I had some fun during my reign. And I can't discuss 2020 without mentioning the best thing that happened at the beginning of the year, and that was the Chiefs won Super Bowl 54 31-20 over the 49ers. Hey, what's up, guys? So I just wanted to kind of briefly discuss the new format that the NBA introduced this year for its annual All-Star Game. So the two teams, so this past year it was Team LeBron versus Team Giannis, would compete to win each of the first three quarters, all of which would start with a 0-0 score and a 12-minute clock. And then at the beginning of the fourth quarter, the game clock is turned off and the final score target is set. So it would be like, for example, this year, the final target score, as it's called, was set at 157 points. And Team LeBron would go on to defeat Team Giannis 157-155 in what I will call the most thrilling All-Star game in recent memory. And it also featured not necessarily an Eastern Conference versus Western Conference type situation. Like, it was kind of like a fantasy draft situation where the players were voted as All-Stars, and then Team LeBron and Team Giannis were drafted by the respective captains and whatnot. So overall, I was a pretty big fan of it. It was pretty entertaining to watch, and that's just kind of a brief recap. Not really much to the new changes, but I like it, and hopefully they keep it going forward. And so something that happened that was exciting for me as an AEW fan is that back in February, they also came to Kansas City. And the opening contest was Kenny Omega versus Pac in a 30-minute Iron Man match. It was my first time ever seeing an Iron Man match, and I was glad that Kenny Omega got the win, 2 falls to 1, to open the show. What a great way to start. The main event time slot of AEW in Kansas City was a scheduled weigh-in between Jon Moxley and Chris Jericho ahead of their AEW World Title match at AEW Revolution just a few nights after that. But before that took place, this happened.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, his opponent this weekend at the pay-per-view, they'll be accompanied by the Inner Circle. He is the AEW World Champion, Chris Jericho! Amazing solidarity and unification from the Inner Circle, supporting their leader, the first ever and only AEW World Champion in company history, Chris Jericho.
So what you just saw there is the best edition of the Judas Sing-Along since we started it on the cruise about a month before that. It had been done in a few other cities before Kansas City and a few cities after, but I still feel like we did it the best. And then a brawl broke out to end the night, which is kind of expected for this. So here's what happened. So this match that took place on the cruise set up the AEW World Title match at AEW Revolution. And what a match it was to open up the first pay-per-view event of 2020. Jon Moxley, in a hard-fought match, won the title from Jericho. Alright, so another thing that I kind of wanted to go over with you guys is the relaunch of the XFL, which did occur once back in 2001, which was the original time of the XFL, but it was kind of more football combined with WWE, especially at that time. It was still kind of towards the end of the Attitude Era, so they did a lot of different things that just wouldn't fly today. But this year, before the coronavirus pandemic shut down the rest of the season, more than halfway through the year, I thought overall the XFL did a lot of great things, and I'll kind of go over the changes that the XFL decided to do as compared to the NFL. One thing that I really, really like, and I know a lot of people in sports media were a big fan of this, Pat McAfee being one of them, was the more transparent review process. So anytime a challenge was made by a coach or the booth decided to review a play, they would go and show a quote, sky judge looking at the replay with what looked like an Xbox controller. They would look at it, and you could pick up on the audio and be like, well, it looks like he made the catch, but I can't necessarily tell for sure if it was caught and possession was maintained and all this sort of stuff, which I appreciate because in the NFL, when a challenge or booth review is in process, they just go to commercial break, and then they come back from commercial break after the call has been made, whether it's confirmed, it stands, or it's overturned. And that's just like the one thing with the XFL doing what they did that just really, really drove me nuts. And I'm surprised the NFL didn't try to implement that process this year. Hopefully they will starting next season, but obviously it'll be pretty impossible to tell until they decide to make some more rule changes in the offseason. But another thing that I really like is that in the NFL, they almost try to take the kickoff completely out of the game, because as it used to be, it was a very unsafe play, and there's been a couple of paralyzations that have occurred in the NFL in recent years because of that. But what the XFL did to, one, keep the kickoff in the NFL, and two, make it safer, but then also three, still maintain the possibility of an exciting return, was so the kicker would kick it off from the 30-yard line. And the ball has to remain, under XFL rules, in the air and in play between the opponent's 20-yard line and the end zone. And the coverage team would line up at their own 30-yard line, and the kickoff team lines up at the 35-yard line. So they all are right there, 5 yards apart, and they cannot move until the returner catches the kickoff, or I think unless also 5 seconds has run off after the ball hits the ground or whatever. I really like that because it makes the kickoff safer and still keeps it in the game. And then obviously kickoffs that go out of bounds or in XFL rules fall short of the 20-yard line in the air results in an illegal procedure penalty, taking the ball out to the 45-yard line. So in like the NFL or college football, if you kick it out of bounds, the returning team would start at the 35-yard line, but now you're giving them an extra 10 yards as a result of that penalty. So I kind of like that. It kind of gives more incentive to have a stronger leg or to just make sure it stays in bounds. So, and another thing that I kind of like, but also kind of wish they would tweak it just a little bit, is they had 3 options for what you could do after a touchdown is scored. The one thing that they don't do in the XFL is just the regular kicking the extra point afterwards. You would have either a 1-point play from the 2-yard line, a 2-point play from the 5-yard line, or a 3-point play from the 10-yard line. Which I definitely like the option of a 3-point play, because let's say you're down by 9 points, or even down by 8 points, and you're kind of in that situation where if we start an extra 5 yards back and convert the play, we actually end up winning the game or taking the lead late in the game. Or even if you have a pretty big deficit in like the second quarter or even late in the third quarter, you could really start eating into that deficit and keep coming away with 9 points as opposed to either 7 or 8, or in some cases 6. So I definitely like that there's an extra option. I just wish you also had the option in the XFL of just kicking the extra point, you know. But it is what it is. So the XFL also created in their rules a, quote, comeback period, which occurs after the 2-minute warning in the first half and the second half, so, meaning 2 minutes before the end of each half. On plays that end in the field of play, the game clock is stopped until the ball has been spotted and 5 seconds run off the play clock. So it would basically be like a college football type thing where the ball is spotted and then the clock starts again. But this time it wouldn't be after just the first down. It would be after any particular play. And on incomplete passes and out of bounds plays, um, again, the game clock will stop completely until the ball is snapped. So that didn't really change from anything else. And then another thing that the XFL did back in the day to an extent, but they kind of improved it this time around, was enhanced player access on the sidelines during games. And then another thing was increased communication that could be heard during the TV broadcast. So like if the defensive coordinator is the one calling the plays, you could hear the audio of whatever the play is, and like same thing with the offensive coordinator calling the plays into the quarterback. But actually in the XFL, on offense at least, I don't remember how it worked from the defensive side, but on offense, the quarterback and all the running backs and like tight ends and wide receivers, the skill position players, would also get the play in their helmet. So I really like that. Then you could even hear like the primary play call and then like the audible play call going into the quarterback's helmets. So I definitely like that. And the only thing I didn't like about the enhanced player access on the sidelines during games was if the kicker had just missed a field goal, or a quarterback just throws an interception, or somebody just fumbled the ball. It's just kind of cringeworthy because, what else are they going to say, And it's not really an exciting interview. I wanted to see more after like a big sack or interception, like on the defensive side anyway, and after a big touchdown or a big play otherwise. So that's kind of my review of the XFL. I thought it was very successful up until the pandemic forced the shutdown. But luckily, an ownership group that included Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson bought the XFL from Vince McMahon. They won't be coming back next year, but in 2022. So I'm really excited about just kind of once different things behind the scenes are taken care of with the XFL and paying back some debts and things that hadn't been paid yet that were supposed to. I'll be interested to see how successful they are in the comeback, and hopefully the world will be in a better situation with COVID-19 by then, and hopefully they'll get a full season in. So that's my review of the XFL relaunch. So I'd say the biggest surprise of the NFL offseason was when Tom Brady decided to sign with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And not too long after, Rob Gronkowski decided to sign with the Buccaneers as well. This after he was the host of this year's WrestleMania, and at the end of WrestleMania, became the 24/7 champion. This year, instead of being held in Las Vegas as it was previously scheduled, the NFL draft was virtual. So some of the notable draft selections are as follows. Joe Burrow, as you see on the very left, was drafted number 1 overall by the Cincinnati Bengals, his hometown team. At number 5 overall was Tua Tagovailoa, being drafted by the Miami Dolphins. And at 6 overall was Justin Herbert to the Chargers. But then controversy arose as the Green Bay Packers traded up to draft Jordan Love, quarterback out of Nevada, presumably to replace Aaron Rodgers. And then to close out the first round, the Kansas City Chiefs drafted running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of LSU. The following pictures that will appear on your screen are a recap of all of the sports champions that have occurred since the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, symbolizing making it through all of the challenges related to COVID-19 and making it all the way through the end of their respective seasons, whether it be team sports or, in some cases, racing, which is kind of more of an individual sport. So when the pandemic first began and a lot of people were basically stuck at home all day with not much to do, a lot of people were talking about a show called Love is Blind on Netflix, and I guess there were some elements that I liked, but overall, I wasn't much of a fan. I just thought it was kind of overrated, honestly. And another show on Netflix that a lot of people were talking about was a show called Tiger King, centered around two main characters, Joe Exotic, as you can see in that picture there, and Carol Baskin, the lady on the left side of this picture. I would kind of overall describe it as a combined 7.5 hour train wreck where you want to look away, but once you get into or start watching it, you just can't look away. So that's my takeaway from it. Here, really quick, before I share my final thoughts on 2020, I want to announce that I'm very excited um, to share with you guys that next year, every Tuesday at 5 o'clock Central Time, I will have content up on my YouTube channel. Well, guys, 2020 was quite a whirlwind of a year. Um, so, for me and my family, it's just been a very trying year. Um, with my grandmother almost dying in the hospital in January after a couple of complications from what was supposed to be just a routine procedure. It just things went really haywire for a while, and she ended up being in the hospital for about 3 months altogether. But luckily, she's still here and still with us. And um, then, of course, basically right after she got out of the hospital, the COVID-19 pandemic really started to take over this country. And a lot of things were shut down, and a lot of restrictions were put in as safety measures, and um, health-related protocols were added in. Um, and just everything really changed there for a while. And then, unfortunately, back in July, I ended up in the hospital for what started off as just really, really crazy heavy pain in my abdomen, and then of course things got really haywire with the tumor, and the fact that the pain was actually caused by the tumor expanding and into my stomach and kind of crushing my stomach, and caused a lot of different complications just there for a while, and had to have the emergency surgery, which literally, and I mean literally, saved my life. So, but during that time, it was just really awesome to see everyone reaching out and offering help in any way that they could, or just saying, "Hey, I'm here for you," and people that stepped up with financial donations towards all of the medical bills and everything like that, and just people with their text messages and phone calls and messages on social media really helped me get through all of that. And so I just wanted to thank you all that reached out, that financially supported us, and really stepped up for us. I definitely want to thank the doctors and the nurses that and the techs that took care of me in mostly the surgical specialty unit over at Menorah Medical Center. They saw me at my worst, and I actually just recently gave them a Christmas card so that they could also see me at my best, in my own element, having fun and living life to the fullest. Because I know there for a while they saw me at my worst physically and also emotionally and mentally. It's been a long road to recovery from all of that, but I'm definitely grateful that I was able to go back to work almost 3 months after I went into the hospital originally. And I'm just so grateful that I was able to keep my job during the COVID-19 pandemic, even before I went into the hospital, just with a lot of companies that had to lay people off and had to downsize and do a lot of things differently because of all the loss of revenue and things of that sort. So overall, I'm grateful that even though for this family, 2020 has been mostly just a year filled with adversity, but now it's coming to an end on a high note, and things are looking good for both my grandmother and myself. We're both doing well and back at our respective jobs, and just grateful to still be here with you all, and just really grateful. I know I can speak on her behalf on this as well. Just everyone that reached out and wanted to help this family and me and my grandmother, and during those rough times that we had. It really means a lot, and we can't even begin to express how grateful we are. And the people that came to visit me at my house while I was still at home recovering. It's just it's awesome to know that people care, and that people really do love you and support you, and they just want to be there for you, and it meant a lot during that rough period of my life. So hopefully 2021 will go a lot better, and a little less adversity and a little bit more just kicking this tumor's butt. And hopefully within the next year or maybe 2 years, it could be gone. So just keep praying for that. That the tumor, at least in the meantime, continues to just maintain its size, if anything, and just not start growing back again. So for those of you that are wondering how to pray for me and all this sort of stuff with the tumor, there it is. That it just kind of maintains, and if not shrinks, and just until we can get on a different treatment plan with a medication that's coming down the pipeline. It's still, last I heard, it was going through stage 3 clinical trials with the FDA, and they're still gathering information. So hopefully before too long I'll have that medicine, and we can get rid of this thing. So I just want to thank you all for continuing to support my YouTube channel and all of my fun, wacky projects that I do on here. That I've said it before and I'll say it again. I do this completely for free. YouTube does not pay me to do this. I don't have any sponsorships or anything that allow me to make money off of my YouTube channel. So I literally do this just as a hobby on the side. And to see you guys continue to support this, it means a lot. So just until then, God bless you all. Stay safe, stay healthy. Love you all, and God bless.